Barbara Arrindell? I'm not sure myself. But in actual fact, as far as literacy is concerned, so in terms of who am I as far as literacy is concerned, I'm an author. Perhaps to me more important than that, I'm a reader. So I've always been interested in books, in writing, in knowing what's going on. And I found that reading allows me to be anywhere and everywhere, to be somebody else if I want to be, and to get to know the world around me. So for me, literacy then goes beyond just knowing how to read and write. But literacy allows us to travel the world and to know more about people and culture and places. And of course, being a manager of a bookstore has made that journey a bit easier for me. So yes, I'm Barbara Arrindell, the writer, the reader, the bookstore manager, the teacher, the writing coach, those various things, but just somebody who's interested in developing our skills.
Talk to us about the significance of celebrating World Literacy Day.
Okay, so recently we celebrated Caribbean Literacy Day. And Caribbean Literacy Day was fantastic because it was bringing it not just literacy, but literacy from a Caribbean perspective, looking at those books that we have written and the stories that we have created. Now, International Literacy Day or World Literacy Day is something that UNESCO designated since 1966. And in actual fact, what we recognize is that it's grown. So in the beginning, in 1966, they were talking simply about the idea of reading and writing. Now we recognize that literacy involves more than that. So it's not simply are you able to read and write, so you're literate, but what are you literate in? What things are you knowledgeable? Where's your knowledge base? And so they now have 7 main things they consider to be areas of literacy that are essential. And I'm not remembering all of them off the cuff, but there's financial literacy. There's now literacy that as it pertains to data, and there's cultural literacy. There's now legal literacy, recognizing that if we're going to survive in this world, there's certain things we simply need to know and be knowledgeable about, and so they're referred to as things that we are literate in. So yes, it's an important topic, there's no doubt about it. It's a reminder that knowledge is something that we have to constantly chase after, gain, if we are going to be better people and if we're going to create better little human beings coming after us. Transforming literary learning spaces, that's the theme for World Literacy Day 2022. What does that mean for us? To me, I think of it as the places that we tend to learn. How do we need to change those places? Or first of all, do we need to change those places? Are they all okay? Are they perfect? Are these environments where people will learn easily and learn well? We've recognized in the last couple of years that our learning spaces had to change. So our learning spaces were not simply the structures, the schools, but our learning spaces became our dining room table, our bedroom. For the children who went to school, all of a sudden those learning spaces also included under the tree, in the shed that was just built, or the overhead area that was just created in the school room or the school's playground. So was that a problem really? Do we learn only in a building? I think we recognize no, we can learn anywhere. Languages are a very important thing. And so now, all of a sudden, we've got a number of students learning Mandarin. And so we have to make sure that they have everything they need to learn Mandarin. Spanish is still important. We have a huge Spanish community. So people will come in asking for books like this, as well as the dictionaries that are needed for that. And so there's some Caribbean books by a publisher called Caribbean Reads. There's a Caribbean Adventure series. So these are some of the things that parents want for their early learners, and they are books that can be used, in some cases reused, because they have pens that are erasable. So if we're talking about cultural literacy, we're actually going to be reminded that culture is what we do right here, right now. People often mix up culture with history. All right. So, and I'm going to do the same thing as I show you some quote unquote cultural and or historical books, because history does in fact inform our culture. So, for example, culture. Culture is definitely King Shortshirt. And this book written by Dorbryn Omar gives us the story of King Shortshirt, Nobody Gonna Run Me. To me, this is essential reading for all of us. You know, culture is also a book by Gail Gonzalez, My Stories Have No Ending. And this is sort of a reminder of some of the stories that parents and grandparents tell their children. You know, it gets into little ghost stories and other things that are of interest to all of us. And then we go back in history a bit more and we say, well, our culture was influenced greatly by many things. And this book, The Willie Lynch Letter, again, some people say it's false, some people say it's very real. And it's called The Making of a Slave. So because we always focus on literacy as far as children, right? We want our 4 and 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds to start to read. Of course, if we want them to be readers, then we as parents, guardians, grandparents, godparents, we need to provide them with the books, but also we want to provide them with spaces where that reading and that exchange of knowledge is easy to access. So we want to make sure we're telling them bedtime stories. We're reading to them so they eventually will want to read for themselves. And so my message to parents of children of all ages, particularly smaller children, is get them into the habit of reading. Also become the example that you want them to follow. So it's hard for you to say to little Jamal, little Jamina, go and read a book. You know, if you're not reading books. If they see mom and dad and uncle and cousin reading books, then they think that's what you do, because we follow the examples that are around us. But I also want to remind parents that it doesn't end when they're 7 or 8. Because here in the bookstore, we've found that people are more willing to buy books for their small children. And as the children get bigger, to me, usually around 7, 8, parents kind of almost forget about it until they see the report card in grade 5. And they remember that common entrance, or whatever it may be named now, is coming up. And they then want to get little Johnny Jr. reading again, and they then rush into finding books. So finding books and reading regularly, constantly, throughout a child's life, that's what I want parents and other people in our community to do. I want to see our leaders getting onto ABS TV and reading a book. Show them that reading is a cool thing. I'd love to see, you know, our Governor General with a book in his hand. I know he's an avid reader, I have no doubt about that. Our Prime Minister, all the ministers of government, and the ministers of religion, and our other leaders, our teachers, everybody. Just, you know, a spot reading. Let our children and our adults see that reading is not just essential, but it's a cool and fun thing.